Part 1. The morning light from Kepler 7 station's artificial sun filled the classroom with a soft golden glow. Hannah stood at the front of the room, watching her students settle into their seats. 23 young beings from across the galaxy looked up at her with eyes of every shape and color. Some had 2 eyes. Some had 6. One student didn't have eyes at all but sensed the world through vibrations in the air. Hannah smiled and touched the control panel on her desk. A holographic image appeared above the students' heads. It showed Earth, her home planet, spinning slowly in the darkness of space. The blue and green colors made several students gasp with wonder. "Today we're learning about ecosystems," Hannah said in her calm, gentle voice. "Does anyone know what an ecosystem is?" A small paw shot up in the front row. Minho, a Valkyrian cub covered in soft silver fur, bounced in his seat with excitement. His bioluminescent markings glowed a happy blue color along his spine. Next to him, his younger sister Yuna copied his movement, her tail swishing back and forth. "Yes, Minho?" Hannah crouched down to his eye level, something she always did when talking to her students. "It's where plants and animals live together," Minho said proudly. His sharp teeth showed when he smiled, but Hannah had long stopped noticing them as threatening. "Exactly right," Hannah said warmly. She reached out and gently patted the space between his ears. Minho's markings glowed brighter with pleasure. "And Earth has many different ecosystems. Let me show you one." The hologram changed. Now it showed a wide grassland under a hot sun. Strange animals moved across the screen. Large beasts with horns ran in herds. Tall spotted creatures ate from treetops. And there, resting in the shade, a group of golden-furred predators watched everything with lazy eyes. "Lions," Hannah explained. "They're one of Earth's apex predators. That means they're at the top of the food chain in their ecosystem." Yuna raised her paw, her young voice full of curiosity. "Teacher Hannah, do they hunt alone?" "No, Yuna. They hunt together in groups called prides. They work as a team to bring down prey much larger than themselves." Hannah showed them a video of lions hunting. The class watched in fascinated silence. Behind Hannah, her teaching assistant Jiwon clicked her mandibles together nervously. The Thalaxian's forearms fidgeted with her datapad. Her compound eyes kept glancing at the Valkyrian cubs. "Teacher Hannah," Jiwon said quietly when the students were working on their assignments, "are you sure it's safe to have them here?" Hannah looked at her assistant with kind but firm eyes. "Them? You mean Minho and Yuna?" Jiwon's antennae twitched with embarrassment. "I just mean, they're predators, and they're reaching the age when their feral instincts develop. What if something triggers them?" "They're children, Jiwon," Hannah said softly. "Yes, they're predators, but they're also 6 and 5 years old. They need education and understanding, not fear and isolation." She looked over at the cubs who were drawing pictures of the lions with their claws. "Fear causes more problems than it prevents." Jiwon wanted to argue, but she respected Hannah too much. The human teacher had been working with alien children for 7 years. She had never lost a student or had a serious incident. Still, Jiwon couldn't shake her worry. The lesson continued smoothly. Bora, a floating Etherian student, asked about Earth's oceans. Tay, whose body was made of living crystal, wanted to know about deserts. Hannah answered every question with patience and enthusiasm. She moved around the classroom, checking each student's work, offering encouragement and gentle corrections. When she reached Minho's desk, she noticed he had drawn himself next to a lion. "That's a wonderful picture," she said. "Teacher Hannah, do you think lions and Valkyrians could be friends?" Minho asked seriously. Hannah thought about the question carefully. "I think any 2 beings can be friends if they try to understand each other. It takes patience and kindness, but it's possible." Minho's markings glowed with happiness. Yuna leaned over from her desk. "Teacher Hannah, can humans be friends with lions?" "Actually, yes," Hannah said with a small smile. "Humans have lived alongside predators for thousands of years. We learned to understand them. Some even became our companions. But humans don't have claws," Minho said, looking at his own sharp claws. "Or big teeth. How did you become apex predators?" Hannah laughed softly. "We didn't need them. Humans use different tools. We used our minds, our ability to work together, and our understanding of other creatures." She tapped her head. "Sometimes the best weapon is knowing what others are thinking and feeling." The cubs seemed to accept this answer, though they didn't fully understand it. They went back to their drawings. Hannah moved on to help other students. The classroom felt peaceful, safe, normal. This was what Hana loved about teaching. Creating a space where young beings from different worlds could learn and grow together, where a human could teach predator cubs about Earth's predators without anyone being afraid. Then the alarm sounded. Red lights began flashing along the ceiling. A deep pulsing tone filled the air. Every student looked up in confusion and growing fear. "Attention," a mechanical voice announced through the speakers. "Lockdown procedure initiated. All teachers secure your classrooms immediately." "This is not a drill." Hana's heart jumped, but her voice remained calm. "All right, everyone. You know what to do. Move to the safe corner, please, quietly and carefully." She had practiced this with them many times before. The students began moving. Most of them had done lockdown drills before, but this time felt different. The announcement had said it wasn't a drill. Some of the younger students started to whimper. Bora's floating body deflated slightly with fear. Hana helped guide them to the reinforced corner of the classroom. She counted heads, 23, all present, but when she looked at Minho and Yuna, her chest tightened with worry. Both cubs had their ears flattened against their heads. Their tails were tucked tight against their bodies. Their bioluminescent markings had shifted from blue to orange, the color of distress. Their eyes were wide and their breathing had become quick and shallow. "It's okay," Hana whispered to them, kneeling down. "It's probably just a mistake. You're safe here." But even as she said it, she heard something that made her blood run cold. Heavy footsteps, many of them, coming down the hallway toward her classroom. And they were moving fast. The classroom door, which should have been locked, suddenly burst open. 6 armed security officers pushed into the classroom. They wore black tactical armor and carried weapons that hummed with stored energy. Their leader was Commander Daehyun, a tall Korthan whose reptilian scales gleamed under the red emergency lights. His yellow eyes swept across the room, counting students. "Everyone remained calm," Daehyun said, though his voice was anything but calming. It was sharp and commanding. "We're here on official coalition business." Hana stood up slowly, placing herself between the security team and her students. "Commander, what's happening?" "Why are you in my classroom?" "New safety protocols effective immediately," Daehyun said, reading from his datapad. "All predator species students must be removed from mixed classrooms and placed in secure holding until their parents arrive." Hana felt her stomach drop. "Secure holding? Commander, these are children, not criminals. What's this about?" "There was an incident on Nexus Station yesterday," Daehyun explained, his tone clipped and professional. "A young predator went feral during class and injured 3 students before security could stop it. The Coalition has ordered all stations to implement immediate safety measures." "My students are not a threat," Hana said firmly. Behind her, she could hear Minho and Yuna whimpering softly. Their fear smell was starting to fill the air. "They're scared. Your presence is making things worse." "That's not our concern," Daehyun said. He gestured to 2 of his officers. "Get the Valkyrian cubs. Be quick about it." "No." Hana stepped forward, her hands raised. "Please just give me a moment to explain to them what's happening. Let me prepare them. If you just grab them, they'll panic." Daehyun's tail lashed with impatience. "We don't have time for your human sensitivities, teacher. Step aside. That's an order." The 2 officers moved past Hana. They carried long metal poles with loops at the end, catch poles used for restraining dangerous animals. The other students pressed themselves against the walls, terrified. Jiwon had all 4 arms wrapped around herself, her antennae flat against her head. Minho and Yuna backed into the corner. Their markings were now pulsing bright red, a warning color. Their small bodies trembled. When the first officer reached toward Minho with the catch pole, the cub's lips pulled back from his teeth. "Wait!" Hana shouted. "Stop! You're triggering their defense response." But the officer didn't stop. The loop of the catch pole moved toward Minho's neck. The cub saw it coming. Something ancient and instinctive took over his young mind. His eyes went black. His body began to change. It happened in seconds. Minho's muscles swelled beneath his fur. His claws extended to twice their normal length. His teeth grew longer, sharper. His spine arched and his whole body seemed to grow larger, more powerful. The sweet-faced cub who had been drawing lions just minutes ago was gone. In his place stood something that looked like it belonged in nightmares. Yuna transformed beside her brother. The 2 cubs were no longer children. They were feral predators driven by pure survival instinct. Their intelligence had been buried under millions of years of evolution that screamed one command: fight. Minho moved with blinding speed. He leaped at the officer with the catch pole. His claws raked across the man's armored chest, leaving deep gouges in the supposedly unbreakable material. The officer screamed and fell backward. His catch pole clattered to the floor. Yuna went for the second officer. She was smaller but just as fast. She knocked the weapon from his hands with one swipe of her paw. When he tried to grab her, she bit down on his glove hard enough to crack the protective material. "Stun them," Daehyun roared. "Fire now." The remaining officers raised their weapons. Blue energy bolts shot across the classroom, but the cubs moved like liquid shadow. They dodged and weaved with reflexes beyond what should be possible for creatures their size. The stun bolts hit walls, desks, and teaching equipment. Nothing hit the cubs. The other students screamed. Some tried to run for the door, but the security team blocked the way. Bora floated up toward the ceiling, her body inflated with terror. Tay's crystalline form refracted the red emergency lights into 1,000 blood-colored fragments. Minho jumped onto a desk and launched himself at another officer. His weight and momentum knocked the Korthan to the ground. Claws and teeth found gaps in the armor. The officer's screams echoed off the walls. "Switch to lethal force," Daehyun commanded. His own weapon began charging with a different sound, deeper and more ominous. Authorization code 77 read, "Lethal force approved." The other officer's weapons changed pitch. The blue glow shifted to angry red. These were no longer stun weapons. These would kill. Hana's mind raced. Everything was happening too fast. 2 children she had taught and cared for were about to be executed because the security team had approached them wrong. Because no one had listened to her warning. Because fear had overruled common sense. "Targeting lock acquired," one officer reported. His weapon tracked Minho's movements with a red laser dot. "I have the smaller one," another officer said. Yuna's fur was marked with a second red dot. "Fire on my mark," Daehyun said. His voice was cold now. He had made his decision. 3, 2, Jiwan grabbed Hana's arm. "Get down." "Teacher, please." But Hana didn't get down. Time seemed to slow down around her. She saw the officers with their fingers on triggers. She saw the feral cubs snarling and circling, looking for their next target. She saw her other students frozen in terror. She saw the red dots painting death on silver fur. She saw children about to die. So Hana did something that every instinct in her body screamed was suicide. She pulled free from Jiwan's grip. She walked forward, directly into the line of fire. She spread her arms wide, placing her body between the security weapons and the feral predators. "1," Daehyun's voice faltered. "Teacher, move, now!" "No," Hana said quietly. Her voice should have been lost in all the chaos and shouting. But somehow everyone heard it. "You're not killing my students." Behind her, she heard Minho and Yuna growl, deep rumbling sounds that vibrated through the floor. She could smell their breath, hot and predatory. They were right behind her, close enough to tear her apart. "Are you insane?" Daehyun shouted. "They'll kill you!" "Maybe," Hana said. Her heart was pounding so hard it hurt. Her hands were shaking, but she didn't move. "But you're not shooting through me to get to them." The growling behind her grew louder. She could feel hot breath on the back of her neck. Death was inches away. Everyone in the room was certain they were about to watch their teacher be ripped to pieces. And then Hana began to lower herself down into a crouch. Every eye in the room watched Hana crouch down slowly. Her movements were smooth and careful. She made herself smaller, less threatening. Her knees touched the cold floor and she stayed there perfectly still. "Teacher," Jiwon's voice cracked with terror. "Please move away." Hana didn't respond. She couldn't afford to break her concentration. Behind her, Minho and Yuna circled like sharks in water. Their claws clicked against the floor tiles. Their breathing was harsh and quick, the sound of hunters sizing up prey. Slowly, very slowly, Hana turned her head to the side, not looking at the cubs directly. In predator language, direct eye contact was a challenge, a threat. She looked away, showing she wasn't challenging them, showing submission. Then she extended one hand, palm down. Fingers relaxed and slightly curved. She held it out to her side, away from her body, at the height where a cub's nose would naturally reach it. And she waited. The security officers held their weapons steady, but their hands were shaking. They had clear shots at the cubs, but Hana was too close. One wrong move and they might hit her instead. "What is she doing?" one officer whispered to Daehyun. The commander didn't answer. He didn't know. He had never seen anyone do anything this foolish or brave. Probably both. Minho approached first. His massive paws padded closer to Hana. Each step brought him nearer to her exposed back. His claws were fully extended. His teeth dripped saliva. His black eyes showed no recognition, no memory of the teacher who had patted his head just minutes ago. He stopped inches from her hand. His nose twitched. He was smelling her, analyzing her. His growl grew deeper, louder. It vibrated through the floor and into Hana's bones. Hana's heart hammered in her chest, but she kept her breathing slow and even. Steady. Calm. She didn't move her hand. Didn't pull away. Didn't flinch. She remained perfectly still, like a statue of patience. Then she began to hum. It wasn't a song. It wasn't words. It was a low, rhythmic sound that came from deep in her chest. The kind of sound that vibrated through the air. Similar to the purring of Earth's big cats. Similar to the comfort sounds that mother predators made to their young. Minho's ears twitched forward. Just slightly. The growl didn't stop, but it changed pitch. Became less aggressive. More uncertain. He moved his nose closer to Hana's hand. She felt his hot breath against her skin. Felt the wetness of his nose as it touched her palm. He sniffed deeply. Once, twice, 3 times. Hana continued humming. The sound filled the silent classroom. Everyone was frozen, watching something impossible unfold before them. Minho's bioluminescent markings flickered. Red faded to orange. Orange shifted to yellow. His body remained tense, muscles still coiled to strike. But something was changing. Something was reaching through the feral fog in his mind. Yuna approached next. The smaller cub moved to her brother's side. She sniffed Hana's hand too. Her growl was higher pitched but just as dangerous. But like her brother, her ears began to turn forward. Listening to the humming sound, Hana slowly, very slowly, began to move her fingers. Just tiny movements, gentle scratches in the air, the kind of motion that invited touch. That promised comfort rather than harm. Minho pressed his snout against her palm. The pressure was firm but not aggressive. His nose was cold and wet against her skin. Hana fought every instinct to pull away. Instead, she gently curved her fingers. Let them rest on the bridge of his nose between his eyes. The touch was light. Barely there, but it was a connection. The first thread of understanding passing between human and predator. Minho's markings shifted to yellow-green. His growl softened to something almost like a questioning sound. His body began to relax. The massive muscles that had swollen with the transformation started to shrink back toward normal size. Hana began to stroke between his ears. Slow, gentle movements, the same way she had petted him 1,000 times before. Her touch was sure and confident. It said, "I know you. I'm not afraid of you. You're safe with me." Yuna pushed under Hana's other hand. The smaller cub wanted the same comfort. Hana brought her second hand up, moving carefully, and began to stroke Yuna's head too. Both cubs' markings turned to green. Calm green, safe green. Their eyes began to change from solid black back to their normal appearance. Intelligence returned to their gaze. Memory came back. The transformation reversed itself. Their bodies shrank. Their claws retracted. Their teeth returned to normal size. Within minutes, they were no longer feral monsters. They were children again, scared, exhausted children. Minho made a sound, a small broken whimper. His legs gave out and he collapsed against Hana. Yuna followed, pressing her small body against her teacher's side. Both cubs were shaking. Both were making quiet crying sounds. Hana wrapped her arms around them both. She pulled them close, cradling them like the young children they were. Her own hands were shaking now. The fear and adrenaline she had been suppressing came flooding through her system. But she kept her voice calm and soothing. "Shh, it's okay. You're okay now. I've got you. You're safe." She spoke in Korean, then in the cub's native language, then back to Korean. The words didn't matter. Her tone did. Her touch did. Minho buried his face against her shoulder. "Teacher, I was so scared. I couldn't think. I couldn't stop. I know, sweetheart. I know." Hana rocked them gently. "It wasn't your fault. You're safe now. I promise." The classroom was silent except for the cub's soft crying and Hana's whispered reassurances. The security team stood frozen, weapons lowered, staring at something they couldn't understand. Their training had no explanation for what they had just witnessed. Daehyun's mouth hung open. His translator device beeped in confusion, unable to process the contradiction between what he knew about feral predators and what he had just seen. Feral predators couldn't be calmed. They had to be killed or sedated. That was the rule. That was how the galaxy worked. But a human had just done the impossible with nothing but her bare hands. Jiwan's compound eyes were fixed on Hana. All four arms hung limply at her sides. She had been certain her teacher would die. They all had been certain. But Hana was alive. And the cubs were cubs again. The other students began to emerge from their hiding places. Bora floated down from the ceiling. Tay's crystalline form stopped flashing with panicked colors. They gathered around their teacher, wanting to be close to the one who had made the scary things go away. Hana looked up at Daehyun. Her eyes were fierce despite the tears on her cheeks. "They're children," she said quietly. "Just children." Before the commander could respond, the classroom door opened again. Principal Hyuk stood in the doorway. The elderly human's face was pale. His hands gripped his datapad so hard his knuckles were white. "The entire incident was broadcast," he said in a hollow voice. "Someone in security operations triggered the emergency broadcast system. Everything that happened here was transmitted across the coalition network." Hana's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" Hyuk looked at her with an expression somewhere between awe and fear. "Every species in the galaxy just watched you calm 2 feral predators with your bare hands. Every ambassador, every leader, every citizen with access to coalition feeds. They all saw it. And?" Hana whispered, though she already knew the answer would change everything. "And they want to know how humans can do that," Hyuk said softly. "They want to know what else humans can do." The station's medical center was quiet, except for the soft beeping of monitoring equipment. Minyo and Yuna lay on examination beds sleeping deeply. The transformation and the fear had exhausted them completely. Dr. Junho checked their vital signs while several coalition officials watched through a transparent wall. Hana sat between the 2 beds, holding both cubs' paws. She hadn't left their side since security had escorted them here. Her clothes were torn and stained. Her hair had fallen loose from its bun, but her eyes were alert and protective. "They'll be fine," Dr. Junho said quietly. The human xenobiologist smiled at Hana with tired respect. "No injuries. Just exhausted. The feral transformation burns a huge amount of energy." "Good," Hana said. Her voice was hoarse from stress. "That's good." Dr. Junho glanced at the officials watching from outside. He lowered his voice. "They want to talk to you. They have a lot of questions about what you did." "I know," Hana said, "but I'm not leaving until the cubs wake up and I can explain what happened to them." "I'll tell them," Junho said. He walked to the door and spoke briefly to the officials. They didn't look happy, but they nodded. Hours passed. When the cubs finally woke, Hana explained everything in simple terms they could understand. She told them what happened wasn't their fault. She told them they were brave. She told them she would make sure they were safe. Only then did she agree to leave them with their parents, who had arrived in a panic from their diplomatic quarters. Principal Hyuk's office was crowded with holographic projections. Ambassadors and officials from a dozen species filled the space as 3-dimensional images. All of them stared at Hana as she entered. "Teacher Hana," a Thalaxian ambassador began. His mechanical translator made his voice sound sharp and cold. "We need you to explain what we witnessed. How did you calm feral predators?" Hana looked at all the watching faces. Some showed curiosity. Some showed fear. Some showed suspicion. She took a breath and answered honestly. "I used standard de-escalation techniques," she said. "I made myself appear non-threatening. I used body language to communicate safety. I connected with them on an emotional level. Standard?" A Korthan representative's scales rattled with disbelief. "There's nothing standard about controlling feral minds." "I didn't control them," Hana corrected gently. "I calmed them. There's a difference. I helped them feel safe enough to come back to themselves." "But how?" pressed another official. "What power do humans possess that allows this?" A new hologram appeared. Dr. Soman, a human xenopsychologist, smiled patiently at the assembled officials. "If I may explain," she said, "humans don't possess any supernatural power. What we have is experience." She displayed an image of Earth. "Our planet is classified as a death world. Everything on Earth evolved to survive in extremely hostile conditions. Predators competed with other predators. The environment itself was deadly. To survive, humans developed certain abilities. The image changed to show ancient humans hunting. We weren't the strongest predators. We weren't the fastest. We didn't have claws or fangs or venom, but we had big brains and we lived in social groups. We learned to read body language. We learned to understand fear and aggression and trust. We learned to predict what other creatures would do. More than that, Dr. Soman continued, humans learned to work with other predators. We domesticated wolves, turning them into dogs. We made allies out of animals that should have been our competitors. We did this by understanding them, by connecting with them emotionally. A Velcarian ambassador named Kyung spoke up. His voice was tense. So you're saying humans can manipulate predator instincts? That you can control species like mine? Not control, Hana interjected. Understand. There's a huge difference. I can't make anyone do anything they don't want to do. I can only help them feel safe enough to make better choices. But the potential for abuse is obvious. Kyung argued. If humans can calm feral predators, what else can they make us do? The room erupted into argument. Different species shouted over each other. Some defended humans. Others demanded restrictions. A few suggested humans should be banned from positions of authority over predator species. Principal Hyuk stood up. His voice cut through the noise. Enough! Teacher Hana saved 2 children's lives today. She prevented security from executing cubs who were simply frightened. She did nothing wrong, but she revealed a dangerous capability. A herbivore species representative named Mirai said nervously, if humans can influence predators so easily, how can we trust them? The same way we've been trusting them for decades, Hyuk replied. Humans have been working with every species in the coalition peacefully. They've prevented conflicts, not caused them. Today proved that their abilities are valuable, not dangerous. Dr. Junho stepped forward. If I may add something, he said. What Teacher Hana did today, any trained professional could learn to do. These aren't magical powers. They're teachable skills based on understanding behavior and psychology. We've been trying to share this knowledge with other species for years, but few have been interested. This made several officials pause. The idea that these abilities could be learned changed the conversation. You're saying other species could learn to do what the human did? Asked the Thalaxian ambassador. Absolutely, Dr. Soman confirmed. The principles are universal. Fear responses, social bonding, trust building. These exist across species. Humans simply had to learn these skills to survive on our dangerous planet. But anyone can study behavioral science and psychology. Hana spoke quietly. I've been teaching Jiwon, my assistant, some of these techniques. She's Thalaxian. She's already better at reading student emotions than she was a month ago. It's not about being human. It's about choosing to understand rather than fear. The arguments continued for hours. Questions turned into debates. Debates turned into proposals. Finally, a consensus began to form. The coalition would not restrict human activities. Instead, they would establish a new field of study, focused on interspecies psychology and behavior. Humans would train other species in de-escalation and communication techniques. The discriminatory policy of removing predator children from classrooms would be abolished. Teachers across the galaxy would receive proper training instead. But there was one more requirement. The Coalition Council wanted to hear directly from Teacher Hana. They wanted her to testify before the full assembly. They wanted to understand humans better. They want me to go to Covenant Station? Hana asked Hyuk after the holograms had disconnected. Yes, Hyuk said. In 1 week. You'll speak before the entire Galactic Council. Hana felt overwhelmed. I'm just a teacher. I'm not a diplomat or a scientist or a politician. That's exactly why they want to hear from you, Hyuk said gently. You're just a teacher who saw children in danger and did what was right. That's what the galaxy needs to understand about humans. Not that you're dangerous, but that you care. That night, Hana lay in her quarters and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in the galaxy, millions of beings were talking about her. Some called her a hero. Some called her a threat. Some called her proof that humans were too dangerous to trust. She thought about Minho and Yuna sleeping safely with their parents. She thought about her other students, who had watched her risk her life for 2 of their classmates. She thought about all the young beings across the galaxy who deserved teachers who would protect them. 1 week. She had 1 week to prepare to speak before the most powerful beings in the galaxy. 1 week to help them understand that empathy wasn't weakness, that understanding wasn't manipulation. That sometimes the strongest thing you could do was kneel down and offer your hand to something that scared you. 1 week to show them what it really meant to be human. Part 5. The Galactic Coalition Council chamber was enormous. It formed a perfect circle with seats rising in tiers around the central floor. Representatives from 50 different species sat in those seats, their attention focused on the small human standing alone in the center. Hana felt very small. The chamber could hold thousands. Today it held hundreds, but their combined stares felt like millions. She wore simple clothes, the same kind she wore when teaching. She had refused the formal diplomatic robes they offered. If they wanted to understand humans, they should see her as she really was. Teacher Hana, the council speaker, began. The speaker was a floating crystalline being whose voice came from vibrations in the air. We have watched the recording of the incident on Kepler 7 station many times. We have heard testimony from security personnel, from your principal, and from xenopsychologists. Now we wish to hear from you directly. I'll answer any questions you have, Hana said. Her voice was steady despite her racing heart. Did you know you could calm the feral cubs? Asked a Corthan ambassador. No, Hana admitted. I hoped I could. I believed I could, but I didn't know for certain. Then why did you risk your life? This question came from Mirai, the nervous herbivore representative. Because they were children, Hana said simply. They were my students. They were terrified and confused. Security was about to kill them. I couldn't let that happen if there was any chance I could help. Some say you manipulated those cubs, Ambassador Kyung said. The Velkarian's voice was hard. That you used human abilities to control their minds. Hana looked directly at Kyung. I didn't control anything. I communicated. I used body language that predators understand. I showed submission, not aggression. I offered comfort, not commands. The cubs chose to trust me. They chose to calm down. I just gave them a reason to feel safe enough to make that choice. But you knew what signals to use, pressed another representative. You knew how to reach them when others couldn't. How is that not an unfair advantage? It's knowledge, Hana said. The same kind of knowledge that doctors use to heal, that engineers use to build, that diplomats use to negotiate. Yes, I studied behavior. I learned about predator psychology. I practiced reading body language. But none of that is secret. Anyone can learn these things. Will you prove that? The speaker's voice hummed through the chamber. Will you show us that these skills can be learned by non-humans? Yes, Hana said. I will. At her signal, G1 entered the chamber. The Thalaxian looked terrified but determined. Behind her came Bora, the Etherean student from Hana's class. Bora floated nervously, her gas-filled body pulsing with anxiety. This is G1, Hana explained. She's my teaching assistant. 1 month ago, she was afraid of predator species. She asked me to remove Minho and Yuna from our classroom, but I taught her some basic techniques for reading emotional states and responding appropriately. Hana nodded to G1. The Thalaxian approached Bora slowly. She watched the Etherean's body language carefully. Bora was clearly nervous, her body deflating and inflating rapidly. G1 lowered herself slightly, making her profile smaller. She extended one hand slowly, palm up in a non-threatening gesture. She spoke softly, her mechanical translator keeping her voice gentle. Bora, I see you're nervous. That's okay. You're safe here. Can you tell me what you're feeling? Bora's rapid pulsing slowed. There are so many people watching, she said in her small voice. I know, Jiwan said. It's scary. I'm scared too. But Teacher Hana is here. We're safe. She kept her voice calm and her movements slow. Can you take a deep breath with me? In and out slowly. They breathed together. Bora's body stabilized. Her color shifted from anxious yellow to calmer blue. Within minutes, the frightened student was relaxed and smiling. The council watched in silence. Jiwan, an insectoid species with no natural understanding of mammalian or gas-based emotions, had successfully calmed a distressed student using techniques Hana had taught her. As you can see, Hana said, these skills aren't magical. They're not even particularly complicated. They require observation, patience, and the willingness to try understanding instead of reacting with fear. The chamber was quiet for a long moment. Then Ambassador Kyung stood. Everyone turned to look at him. The Velkarian's expression was complex. I must speak, Kyung said. I came here believing humans were dangerous, that they were using hidden abilities to manipulate other species. But I see now that I was wrong. Not about the abilities, but about the intent. He looked at Hana. My people, the Velkarians, we pride ourselves on our strength, our predatory nature. We see emotional connection as weakness, but Teacher Hana showed me that understanding others is not weakness. It's strength of a different kind. Kyung's voice grew softer. She saved 2 Velkarian cubs when everyone else, including our own people, would have killed them. She risked her life for children who weren't even her species. If that is what humans can do, then perhaps we should be learning from them, not fearing them. Other representatives began to nod. Conversations broke out across the chamber. The mood was shifting from suspicion to curiosity, from fear to possibility. The speaker's voice rose above the noise. The council recognizes the value of what has been demonstrated here today. We propose the following resolutions. The proposals were exactly what Dr. Somin and the other human advisors had hoped for. A new field of interspecies behavioral science would be established. Humans would train teachers and security personnel across the galaxy in de-escalation and communication techniques. The discriminatory policies separating predator children from classrooms would be abolished. Instead, all teachers would receive proper training in managing diverse student needs. More than that, the council acknowledged that fear and ignorance were more dangerous than any predatory instinct. They committed to promoting understanding between species rather than enforcing separation. When the session ended, representatives approached Hana with questions. Some wanted to learn more about human techniques. Others wanted to apologize for their initial suspicions. A few, like Ambassador Kyung, thanked her for changing their perspective. 3 weeks later, Hana stood in her classroom on Kepler 7 station. Everything looked normal. Her 23 students sat at their desks. Minho and Yuna were back in the front row, their markings glowing happy blue. But things had changed. Jiwon was no longer afraid of the cubs. The other students treated Minho and Yuna no differently than before. And across the station, teachers were attending new training sessions on behavioral science and conflict de-escalation. Teacher Hana, Minho raised his paw. Can we learn more about Earth today? Of course, Hana said, smiling. She activated the holographic display. Today we're going to talk about wolves and how they became dogs. It's a story about how 2 predator species learned to trust each other. Why did the wolves trust humans? Yuna asked. Hana thought about the question. She thought about standing in front of feral cubs. She thought about all the moments in history when different beings had chosen trust over fear. Because humans showed them that they didn't have to be afraid, Hana said. Humans offered food and protection and companionship. They proved through their actions that cooperation was better than conflict. The wolves took a chance on trusting, and it changed both species forever. Like you did with us, Minho said quietly. Hana crouched down to his level and gently patted his head. Exactly like that. That night, Hana looked out her quarters window at the stars. Ships passed in the distance, traveling between worlds. Somewhere out there, other species were learning to understand each other better. Other teachers were discovering that fear could be replaced with knowledge. Other children, predator and prey alike, were learning together. Earth had taught humanity to survive by understanding the dangerous creatures around them, by connecting with predators instead of just fighting them, by turning enemies into allies through empathy and patience. Now humanity was teaching the galaxy the same lesson. The most dangerous predator wasn't always the one with the sharpest teeth or the strongest claws. Sometimes it was the one who understood what you were thinking and feeling, the one who could reach past fear and anger to find the scared child underneath, the one who would kneel down unarmed and vulnerable and offer their hand in trust. That was what made humans different. Not that they were stronger or smarter than other species, but that they had spent 200,000 years learning that the best way to survive wasn't to be the most feared. It was to be the most trusted. Hana smiled and turned away from the window. Tomorrow she would teach her students about coral reefs and ecosystems. She would answer their questions and watch them grow. She would show them, through small daily actions, that understanding was stronger than fear, and maybe slowly, the galaxy would learn the same lesson Earth's predators had learned so long ago, that the human with the gentle hand was the one you should fear the least and trust the most.